No, Meghan is not invited to my upcoming Santa Barbara event. I have no involvement with the Epstein matter. Prince Andrew and Meghan do. She made an advance toward me. I did not respond.
Just when the royal drama seemed to calm, a startling revelation explodes into the spotlight. Kevin Costner has reportedly stepped forward with claims that could shake the carefully crafted image surrounding Meghan Markle. As the story unfolded, insiders say Prince Harry was left completely stunned by what surfaced. A secret long whispered about is now allegedly out in the open, sending shockwaves through Hollywood and royal circles alike. So, what exactly did Costner reveal? And why could this moment change everything the world thought it knew? When Hollywood's gate quietly closed. The shift began in a place few people expected: a calm conversation about a charity event along the California coast. The setting was Santa Barbara, where the well-known 1805 live benefit had become one of those rare gatherings where influence quietly meets philanthropy. It was never just another celebrity fundraiser. Within the industry, the event had long been seen as an exclusive meeting ground for powerful figures who shaped the direction of film media and entertainment behind the scenes. Invitations alone carried weight, and attendance signaled belonging. During a discussion about the future of the benefit, Kevin Costner made a statement that instantly changed the tone of the conversation. Known in Hollywood for decades as a respected actor, director, and producer, Costner had built a reputation around authenticity and a certain old-school sense of independence. He was not known for public feuds or dramatic declarations. Yet, on this occasion, his words landed with unusual clarity. He explained that Meghan Markle would not be invited to future gatherings held at his private estate connected to the charity event. For those present, the remark felt less like a casual decision and more like a boundary being drawn. Conversations slowed and stunned looks moved quietly across the room. In Hollywood circles, where diplomacy and careful phrasing often dominate public interactions, statements like this rarely appear without deeper reasons. And when they do, the effects travel quickly beyond the room. The significance was not only about a guest list. The 1805 Live Benefit in Santa Barbara had gradually become a symbol of elite networking within the entertainment world. Producers, executives, investors, and influential artists frequently gathered there not just to support charitable causes, but also to strengthen relationships that shaped major projects across the industry. Being welcomed into that environment carried quiet prestige and subtle influence. For several years, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle had attempted to build their presence within that same Hollywood ecosystem after stepping away from their formal royal roles in Britain. They relocated to Montecito, California, hoping proximity to media power would open lasting doors. But Costner's decision hinted that something inside those circles had begun to change. Industry observers noted that the comment might signal a quiet shift in sentiment among influential figures who usually operate behind the scenes. In Hollywood, relationships often determine opportunity, and doors open or close without public explanation. For some insiders, the remark suggested the Sussex brand, once viewed as a bold blend of royal prestige and Hollywood ambition, might now face a more cautious reception among powerful decision-makers. At the event, Prince Harry still appeared on stage, smiling as cameras captured applause and handshakes. Yet beneath the polished surface, tension quietly lingered. Beneath the applause in Hollywood, a subtle shift seemed to ripple through powerful circles. As Kevin Costner spoke and Prince Harry smiled for cameras, insiders sensed unease. Has the once powerful Sussex brand begun losing quiet support among the very figures who open Hollywood's most important doors? Stay with us. Beneath the applause, a different story unfolds. As the quiet realization from Kevin Costner's earlier remarks began to ripple through Hollywood circles, attention quickly returned to the evening that first sparked whispers. The setting was the 1805 Live Benefit in Santa Barbara, an event that from the outside appeared polished and celebratory. Cameras captured the familiar glow of a high-profile charity gathering along the California coast. Guests arrived dressed in elegant evening attire, while conversations drifted across the seaside estate as industry figures, philanthropists, and celebrities mingled beneath the warm Santa Barbara night. To anyone watching the official footage, The evening seemed like another successful gathering of influential names supporting a charitable cause. Yet among those who were physically present that night, the memory carried a different tone. Eyewitnesses later recalled that something about the atmosphere felt unusually restrained, not hostile, not openly confrontational, but noticeably distant in ways that seasoned observers of Hollywood's social dynamics could not ignore. In rooms where reputation and influence often move through subtle gestures, body language speaks volumes, and on that evening, many noticed the signals. When Prince Harry stepped onto the stage to accept an award, the moment unfolded smoothly. Applause filled the space, cameras flashed, and Harry appeared relaxed as he addressed the audience. For viewers watching the coverage later, the scene suggested warmth and celebration. Yet those observing from within the room noticed that interactions around the stage told a quieter story. Several insiders described Kevin Costner's demeanor as carefully reserved throughout the evening. Instead of the friendly warmth often associated with hosts at such gatherings, his exchanges with Meghan Markle remained brief and controlled. There were polite nods, quick acknowledgements, yet little of the easy conversation or extended engagement expected between guests of similar status. It was not dramatic. There were no raised voices or visible disagreements. In fact, that absence made the moment memorable. In Hollywood's carefully managed social world, tension rarely appears through open conflict. Instead, it reveals itself through absence, a conversation that never begins, a greeting lasting only seconds. Guests quietly compared impressions. Some believed the distance was intentional. Others suggested something may have shifted behind the scenes before the event began. According to certain industry sources, there had been private discussions among agencies and representatives connected to the guest list. A few insiders speculated that Costner might have felt pressure from influential talent agencies to ensure the Duke and Duchess of Sussex appeared alongside other prominent figures. However, people familiar with Costner's long career found that explanation difficult to accept. Over decades, he had built a reputation for independence and firm personal boundaries. Even during the celebration, that quiet separation remained visible, leaving many wondering what truth lay behind the polite distance. Yet observers who knew Kevin Costner's fiercely independent career sensed something deeper behind the polite distance. Why would a man famous for firm boundaries allow such an unusual moment? One quiet remark soon followed, sending shockwaves through Hollywood and royal circles alike. A single remark that sent shockwaves through two worlds. The quiet tension that had surrounded the Santa Barbara charity event did not remain confined to subtle gestures and whispered observations. In the days that followed, the situation took a dramatic turn when a comment attributed to Kevin Costner began circulating through media circles and private industry conversations. What had initially seemed like a restrained social distance suddenly became something far more serious. According to reports that began spreading among Hollywood insiders, Costner had allegedly mentioned Meghan Markle in the same context as the long shadow cast by the Jeffrey Epstein controversy. The comparison was brief, but the effect was immediate and deeply unsettling. Within both Hollywood and royal circles, the name Epstein carries a weight that cannot easily be ignored. The scandal surrounding the late financier had already delivered one of the most damaging blows to the modern British monarchy. Prince Andrew's association with Epstein led to years of intense scrutiny, legal battles, and public outrage. The controversy ultimately forced Andrew to step back from royal duties and withdraw from public life. Images, court records, and testimony linked to the case had left a lasting mark on the reputation of the royal institution itself. Because of that history, even the faintest suggestion connecting another royal figure to the same narrative carried enormous implications. For years, scattered rumors involving Meghan Markle had occasionally surfaced in obscure corners of the internet. These claims, often appearing in online forums or fringe discussions, remained unverified and widely dismissed by credible sources. Without evidence or credible voices raising the issue, they remained little more than background noise in the chaotic world of online speculation. But the situation changed dramatically when a respected figure from within Hollywood appeared to reference the subject publicly. Kevin Costner was not a tabloid writer or anonymous online commentator. He was an Oscar-winning actor and filmmaker with decades of influence in the entertainment industry. His reputation had been built on professionalism and independence, qualities that made his words carry unusual weight when they entered the public conversation. Once the comment began circulating, the response was swift. Conversations quietly erupted among executives and producers across Los Angeles. In an industry where reputation often determines opportunity, even an indirect association with a scandal of that magnitude raised serious concerns. Media strategists and corporate advisors began examining the situation carefully, aware that narratives could shift quickly when high-profile figures were involved. At the same time, the story traveled across the Atlantic to London. Within royal circles, advisors responsible for protecting the reputation of the monarchy began monitoring the discussion closely. The British royal family had spent years attempting to contain the damage caused by the Epstein controversy and the fallout surrounding Prince Andrew. Any development that appeared to reopen that chapter immediately raised alarm within palace communications teams. Caught in the center of the unfolding situation was Prince Harry. Having already experienced the strain of family divisions and public scrutiny following his departure from royal duties, he now found himself indirectly drawn into another controversy connected to the institution he had once represented. What had begun as an uncomfortable moment at a charity gathering in Santa Barbara had now transformed into something much larger. A private tension between individuals had evolved into a public narrative capable of affecting reputations, institutions, and alliances on both sides of the Atlantic. At the center stood Prince Harry, pulled once again into royal turbulence. What began as an awkward moment in Santa Barbara was spiraling across two continents. Was this merely personal tension, or the first sign of a storm forming behind palace walls? Keep watching. Behind palace walls, a storm begins to form. As discussion surrounding Kevin Costner's remarks spread through Hollywood and international media, the ripple soon reached a place where reputational shockwaves are treated with utmost caution. Inside Buckingham Palace, advisors tasked with protecting the image of the British monarchy began quietly monitoring the situation as reports moved across American and British news outlets. What began as celebrity commentary was now drifting into royal territory, forcing palace officials to examine whether the growing narrative might eventually touch the institution itself. In 2026, the timing could hardly have been worse. The royal family was already navigating one of the most delicate periods in recent memory. King Charles III continued managing ongoing health concerns that limited some public appearances and placed greater pressure on the remaining senior royals. At the same time, Catherine, Princess of Wales, had stepped away from duties during her own recovery. With fewer working royals representing the crown, the institution appeared unusually exposed at a moment when stability mattered most. For palace officials, the last thing they wanted was the revival of a controversy linked to one of the monarchy's most damaging modern scandals. For years, the Jeffrey Epstein saga had cast a heavy shadow over the royal institution. Prince Andrew's association with Epstein produced relentless headlines, legal battles, and public outrage that eroded trust in the monarchy. The fallout eventually forced Andrew to step away from royal duties, leaving advisors struggling to repair the institution's credibility. Because of that painful history, even distant references connecting another royal figure to the same narrative carried serious reputational danger. Inside palace offices, communications advisors began evaluating how quickly speculation could travel in a modern media cycle, driven by momentum rather than confirmation. Once a story begins spreading internationally, it can grow far beyond the evidence available. The possibility of Meghan Markle's name appearing anywhere near the Epstein conversation threatened to reopen wounds the monarchy had spent years trying to close. As concern grew, discussions quietly intensified behind palace doors. Legal advisors, constitutional specialists, and senior aides began examining scenarios once considered unlikely. Central among them was a question that touched the heart of royal tradition: whether titles connected to the family could ever be removed if reputational damage threatened the crown. Such a step would involve complicated constitutional procedures and political implications reaching far beyond Buckingham Palace. Yet the fact the option was even discussed revealed how seriously officials were assessing the potential fallout. What had begun as tense remarks at a charity gathering in Santa Barbara was now echoing inside the highest corridors of royal decision-making, where every possibility had to be weighed carefully. Strategy sessions continued as advisors prepared for consequences that might reach beyond palace walls. Now, a centuries-old royal rule quietly returns to the center of power. Behind palace doors, advisors study a question once unthinkable. If scandal threatens the crown, can royal titles be stripped away? And what storm would that unleash? Stay glued. The century-old rule that suddenly matters again. As conversations inside Buckingham Palace grew more serious, attention gradually shifted toward a piece of legislation that had remained largely untouched for more than 100 years. Within legal offices and constitutional advisory rooms, experts began revisiting the Titles Deprivation Act of 1917, a law created during one of the most turbulent moments in British history.
It was Britain's pledge that paved the way for Israel's creation, declaring in 1917,
The act was introduced during World War I, when the British government faced a difficult dilemma involving aristocrats who held royal titles while maintaining ties to enemy nations. At the time, several noble families with German connections were seen as politically sensitive figures, while Britain was locked in conflict. To address the issue, Parliament passed legislation allowing the monarch to remove titles from individuals whose actions or allegiances were considered harmful to the interests of the nation. The law established an important constitutional principle that still exists today. Royal titles, despite their centuries of tradition, are not untouchable privileges. They can be withdrawn if their holders are judged to have damaged the reputation or integrity of the crown. For decades, the legislation remained mostly symbolic. It sat quietly within Britain's legal framework, referenced occasionally by historians, but rarely discussed in active political debate. Modern royal scandals had typically been managed through softer measures, such as the removal of public duties or the quiet withdrawal of official responsibilities. However, recent events had already begun to test those limits. The fallout from the Prince Andrew controversy provided the royal household with a modern example of how severe reputational crises could be handled. Following intense public criticism over Andrew's association with Jeffrey Epstein,
the US Department of Justice has released an image appearing to depict the former Prince Andrew and Jeffrey Epstein.
The prince stepped back from royal duties and lost his military titles and honorary roles. While that decision did not involve the 1917 Act directly, it demonstrated that the monarchy was prepared to take unprecedented steps when public trust in the institution was at risk. Now, according to several insiders familiar with the growing concerns inside royal circles, officials had begun examining whether a similar legal strategy could eventually be considered in relation to Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex. Reports suggested that advisors were quietly assembling a detailed review of events, statements, and developments surrounding the ongoing controversy. Such a move would not happen quickly or quietly. Invoking the Titles Deprivation Act of 1917 would require a structured constitutional process. Legal experts would need to review the circumstances carefully to determine whether the situation met the threshold required by the law. The government would likely need to play a role, since any action connected to royal titles carries political implications that extend beyond the palace. If the process moved forward, it would also bring the issue into the public arena. Parliament would likely become involved, opening the door to debates within the House of Commons and possibly the House of Lords. Politicians, constitutional scholars, and legal authorities would all be drawn into discussions about precedent, authority, and the long-term consequences of altering royal status. Even the possibility of such a debate created waves across royal circles. For generations, royal titles had represented stability and continuity within British tradition. The idea that one of those titles could be legally stripped in the modern era carried enormous symbolic weight. Within palace corridors and among senior royal advisors, the conversation had shifted from quiet concern to careful legal evaluation. And while no official decision had yet been announced, the simple fact that the Titles Deprivation Act of 1917 had returned to the center of serious discussion revealed just how dramatically the situation surrounding the Sussexes had evolved. But behind palace doors, an old law from 1917 is suddenly being whispered again, one capable of rewriting royal status itself. If the world that once celebrated the Sussexes is now stepping back, what exactly changed behind the scenes? Let's find out. The industry that once welcomed them begins to hesitate. While legal conversations quietly unfolded inside Britain's royal institutions, another shift was beginning to take shape thousands of miles away in California. In the entertainment capital of the world, where image and influence are often as valuable as talent itself, the discussion surrounding the Duke and Duchess of Sussex had begun to change in tone. For several years after settling in Montecito, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle positioned themselves at the center of a new chapter.
Meghan Markle and Prince Harry have gone exceptionally grand with their California starter house, Montecito.
Built around media production, philanthropy, and partnerships with some of the most powerful companies in entertainment. Their move to California opened doors to opportunities that blended royal recognition with Hollywood storytelling. Major platforms and agencies saw potential in the couple's ability to attract global attention. Yet the wave of discussion triggered by Kevin Costner's remarks began to ripple through the same industry that had once welcomed them with enthusiasm. Behind closed doors in Los Angeles boardrooms, executives began reviewing the nature of their partnerships with renewed caution. In modern entertainment contracts, reputation plays a central role in protecting corporate investments. Agreements between celebrities and media companies almost always contain morality clauses, legal provisions designed to protect a brand if a public figure becomes associated with controversy that could damage the company's image. For organizations that manage billion-dollar global platforms, the calculation is rarely emotional. It is strategic. If a partnership begins to carry reputational risk, executives are obligated to evaluate whether that association still benefits their brand. One of the most visible examples involves the Sussexes' high-profile deal with Netflix, a partnership originally announced with great anticipation. The agreement was structured around the creation of documentaries, series, and storytelling projects meant to combine personal narrative with social impact themes. At the time, the deal symbolized the couple's transformation from members of the royal family into influential media producers within the American entertainment system. However, as conversations surrounding Costner's statements and the broader controversy continued to spread, corporate analysts began examining how the developing narrative might affect those projects. Executives across the entertainment industry understood that even unverified associations could influence audience perception. In the digital era, public sentiment can shift rapidly, and companies must often respond quickly to protect long-term brand value. The situation also placed pressure on powerful representation agencies responsible for managing celebrity careers. Firms such as WME, which had played a role in representing Meghan Markle's professional interests, operate within a competitive environment where their reputation depends on delivering successful outcomes for both clients and corporate partners. When controversy begins to surround a client, agencies must carefully weigh the long-term implications for their broader portfolio. What made the moment particularly significant was the sudden change in the source of criticism. For years, many of the negative headlines surrounding Meghan Markle had been attributed to the British tabloid press, a media environment frequently criticized for its aggressive coverage of the royal family. Supporters of the Duchess often argued that those narratives reflected cultural misunderstandings or unfair treatment. But the dynamic now appeared different. This time, the discussion was emerging from within Hollywood itself. Kevin Costner was not a newspaper columnist or an anonymous online commentator. He was a respected figure inside the very industry the Sussexes had chosen as the foundation of their new professional life. His voice carried credibility among producers, investors, and executives who influenced the direction of major entertainment projects. As that shift in perception took hold, the implications became difficult to ignore. If the entertainment community began to view the Sussex brand as a potential liability rather than an asset, the carefully constructed California enterprise that supported their post-royal identity could face a much more uncertain future. But as Hollywood's mood quietly shifts, a deeper question begins to surface. If the Sussex brand is no longer an asset but a liability, what happens to the California empire built around it? And where does Prince Harry truly belong? A prince standing between two worlds. As uncertainty continued to grow around the Sussexes standing in both royal and Hollywood circles, attention gradually shifted toward the figure at the center of it all. Prince Harry, once celebrated across Britain and the wider world as a courageous young royal with a strong connection to the military, now found himself navigating a deeply complicated personal and public moment. Observers began noticing a clear pattern emerging during the early months of 2026. In contrast to previous years, when many of Harry's appearances were closely linked with Meghan Markle and their joint projects, the prince increasingly appeared on his own. The change was subtle at first, but it became difficult to ignore. One of the most visible moments occurred during events connected to the Invictus Games, the international sporting competition Harry founded to support wounded and injured military veterans.
The Invictus Games is an international sporting event for injured military veterans. Harry, an English Army veteran himself,
As he traveled to Canada to promote the next stage of the Games, cameras captured him engaging with athletes, military families, and organizers largely on his own. The scenes felt familiar to longtime followers of the prince's public life. In those moments, Harry appeared to reconnect with the role that had once defined his reputation within the royal family. He spoke with confidence about resilience, recovery, and the importance of honoring those who served. Another appearance soon followed thousands of miles away. During a humanitarian visit to Angola, Harry joined organizations working to clear landmines from areas still affected by past conflict. The mission carried powerful symbolism. Decades earlier, his mother, Princess Diana, had drawn global attention to the same issue when she walked through a minefield in protective gear during a historic awareness campaign. Harry's presence in Angola seemed to echo that legacy, reminding many people of the humanitarian work that once made him one of the most admired members of the royal family. Yet these appearances also revealed a deeper tension surrounding the prince's current position. While Harry focused on causes connected to service and humanitarian work, the broader controversy involving Meghan Markle continued to dominate international headlines. Every public engagement placed him in the difficult position of balancing two competing realities. On one side stood his loyalty to his wife and the life they had chosen together in California after stepping away from royal duties. On the other stood the growing discussions within Britain about the reputation of the monarchy and the possibility of more serious institutional responses to the unfolding controversy. For Harry, the situation created a deeply personal crossroads. His public identity had once been firmly rooted within the royal institution. His military service, charitable work, and connection with veterans had shaped the image of a prince who represented duty and resilience. But the choices made in recent years had carried him into a new world where media production, Hollywood partnerships, and celebrity networks played a central role in his public life. Now those two worlds appeared to be moving in opposite directions. The empire that Harry and Meghan had attempted to build since relocating to Montecito rested on a delicate balance between royal heritage and Hollywood opportunity. But as criticism grew louder in both Britain and California, that balance began to feel increasingly fragile. And after Kevin Costner's unexpected intervention had sent shockwaves through both circles, many observers were left quietly wondering whether this moment might mark the beginning of a far more profound turning point in the long and complicated story of the Sussexes. So, what do you think? Did Kevin Costner's revelation trigger Hollywood's cold shoulder, palace panic, and Harry's growing isolation? Or is an even bigger twist still unfolding? We'd like to hear your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.